Hello, let's learn about quilt sandwiches. So the first thing that I always make when I make quilts is something called the quilt top, which is what happens when I'm piecing all the little tiny pieces of fabric together to make something that looks nice. After you are done the quilt top, you must make your quilt sandwich. And a quilt sandwich usually consists of 3 layers. Number 1 is the backing, number 2 is the batting, or sometimes this is called wadding, and number 3 is your quilt top. Usually making this quilt sandwich starts by laying your backing fabric with the right side facing down, and then afterwards you put your batting or wadding layer, and finally you have your quilt top on top. You want to make sure all these layers are nice and smooth and even when you do this, so that when you go in and do your lines of quilting on top of your quilt, everything will stay together nice and flat and you won't get wrinkles or bubbles. As you can imagine, this step is kind of a pain in the butt to do. After you make your quilt sandwich, there are a few different ways you can use to make them stay together. What I've done is I've used these quilt pins, which are rather like curved safety pins, to go through all of the layers and hold them together at regular intervals. Something that I've not personally tried is something called a spray based, which is like a glue that you can spray onto your backing. So then that way when you put your batting layer on, it stays still, and then you spray it onto your batting so that when you put your quilt top on, it also stays still. So it's called glue basting, which kind of just temporarily glues the pieces together before you can do your quilting. And the last way you could do it is by thread basting. And that's where you just take a big needle with a nice long piece of thread and you do a lot of really big stitches through all the layers in order to hold everything together. Thread basting can also be done by machine, but that is more common with long arm machines than it is with free motion quilting or any other type of quilting, because the process of picking this quilt up to take it over to your sewing machine can disturb how the layers lay together. Versus when you have a long arm and you're making the quilt sandwich, you're kind of making the quilt sandwich in the frame of the long arm, so there's no picking it up and moving it over to the machine. Now, basting is literally just a fancy way of saying holding things together temporarily until you can permanently stitch them down. Hence why using pins is called pin basting, using glue is called glue basting or spray basting, or we have thread basting. Let me know which one is your favorite method down in the comments. I'll see you next time, and happy quilting!